Turgos here with the legend, the hardcore legend, Hall of Famer, UFC Hall of Famer, Mick Foley.
Now, UFC Hall of Famer?
Excuse me, WWE Hall of Famer. I'm nervous. You don't get to talk to legends, Hall of Famers, WWE champions all the time. Though I talked to one WWE champion. I talked to Alberto Del Rio a couple of times now, so that was a pretty cool one. I love Alberto, but he's not Mick Foley.
Alberto's got some nice MMA background.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that without a doubt. But, the first thing I have to ask is, Mick Foley, WWE Hall of Fame, PFL. That's not something most people would assume. I know you're at PFL 2 for this season. How does something like that come together? How does Mick Foley and PFL come together?
Oh, man. Well, I'm not here as an expert. There's probably a lot of people watching who know more about MMA than I do, but I think I'm indicative of that fan who's gotten a taste of it and loves it, loves the concept, loves the idea that we just had a press conference where no one trash talked anyone, right?
Yeah,
no one yelled, no one
promos.
pretended to be. There were no promos, right? And on one hand, I love the promos, but Muhammad Ali, a lot of the MMA guys who do the promos, take from Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
Who was the first to admit that he learned everything he knew about promoting fights from professional wrestling. And so while I am a professional wrestler, I love the fact that this is like fighting at its purest, right?
Yep.
These are guys who don't have to shout. Like they kept saying, we do our talking in the ring.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that, I'd say half the guys, or a quarter of the guys, didn't speak English, needed an interpreter. And in some cases, can go home national heroes.
Yeah, yep. Emiliano Sordi.
Yeah, and it's from Turkish.
Loic,
Yeah. In that case, I believe MMA has only become legal in the last week, very recently. It was illegal, so he had to fight out of somewhere else. The gentleman from Argentina.
Yeah, Sordi.
Yeah, Sordi. He's saying people don't believe that someone can be successful, and so I think PFL gives these great athletes a chance to not only have great fights, which is what we're looking for at a certain level, but to do something bigger. Or David talking about trying to prove there's still warriors in the Lakota Nation. He's fighting for something bigger than himself. He's fighting for something even bigger than $1 million. Fighting for national pride in a sense, and I find that really inspiring. And so when PFL asked if I would like to be part of this and just give my vantage point, I jumped in wholeheartedly.
So it's a new interest for you. You weren't maybe a fan of the sport, maybe.
I was, yeah. I go back to '95.
Oh, so were you a Pride guy? Early UFC.
Early UFC, and then there was a lot of crossover between professional wrestling and Pride.
Yep.
I remember being on shows, with Mark Coleman in Japan, and so there was this weird, mutual respect in Japan that wasn't yet shared. Although when I went to a couple of those earlier UFC fights, I would hear that there wasn't a crossover, and I would say, well, I've been to the fights. Believe me, there's a crossover. So
you worked with a couple of crossovers, Dan and Severin.
That's right. Severin, Shamrock, and so I remember knowing I was going to come to WWE. I was working in IWA Japan with Dan Severin at the time, and I was like, Dan, I feel like I need a submission. So Dan was out there on the mats trying to show me something. I had a limited amateur background, and I was always a decent leg rider, which was unusual for a heavyweight. But I loved being out there with some of those pioneers of the sport. Talking about the MMA sport, and at one time, I was looking to do mixed wrestling.
Oh, yeah,
fights.
Shoot wrestling.
A shoot wrestling. And I liked. You can go back to Mind Games 1996 with me and Shawn Michaels, and you'll see that Shawn turned a body scissors into a guard. He started raining down forearms on me, and so we tried to bring some, a little bit of that early UFC to what we were doing in WWE.
I'm glad you brought up crossover, because that was another question I had asked. what is the appeal? And I actually asked, there's a couple of female wrestlers that have gotten into combate, and I've asked one of them recently, what is the appeal that wrestlers jump into MMA? We've had Brock, CM Punk, Lashley, Batista, Alberto was in it originally, went into wrestling and going back to it. What is the appeal that you see some MMA guys, Matt Riddle now, going into wrestling, but so many from wrestling going to MMA. What's the appeal?
I think you're
is
seeing...
the amateur background? I know Brock and Lashley have the wrestling, but CM Punk, Batista didn't.
Yeah, a lot of them just need to know. Need to see what's inside of them. Like, I always felt like Brock is such a competitor that he excelled in wrestling, the early Brock Lesnar, until it became easy for him. And then he looked for new challenges, whether it was to go into the NFL or whether to become a UFC champion. And I think when it comes to the other crossover from MMA to professional wrestling, they just realized that some of the things that allowed them to be great in MMA or collegiate wrestling or whatever their discipline was, jiu-jitsu or judo, is what's needed to excel in WWE. If they've already got the physical gifts and the mentality to do it, and they know there's a great a meme I put out. I retweeted it, and it said, "You can't fight here," and it was a packed, Vegas arena or whatever, unless you fought here. And there was about 100 people around a jerry-rigged cage, and I was like, bingo, because you can't wrestle here, being Madison Square Garden, unless you've done your work in armories and middle schools and parking lots. So I think there's a certain brotherhood, and they don't throw around the F word, fake anymore. Like, they realize that I love seeing MMA athletes excel. Like Shayna Baszler just had a dynamite match on NXT, maybe one of the biggest.
Huge crossover.
And then brought that MMA style and made it turn into a really believable pro wrestling style. So I love it. I'm very much for it.
And two questions in one. One is, do you see a longer term relationship between you and the PFL doing stuff like this? And two, is it easier for you? Because I know you've done a lot more than just wrestling since you're retired. But is this transition, talking about crossover, because there's a clear fan crossover too. A lot of MMA fans are wrestling fans. Do you think it's easier to jump into something like this and get like a warm reception? Because so many people here, like myself, grew up and watch you and then are watching MMA. Is it an easier next job to do, to be in something like this?
Well, this isn't a job. It's not a job.
Gig or a cameo.
I mean, Lillian Garcia is a dear friend, and she asked me if I wanted to go to Nassau Coliseum several months ago. I put this date, MSG, December 31st on my schedule, so much so that I even booked my own little storytelling show at the Stand on the 30th. So if you guys want to see me at the Stand, I believe there's still some. And I invited Kayla to come there as my guest. And I just, I intend to be a fan. I love big fight feels, I love the idea that once you get to know the people involved and see what's riding on it, that it's more, like I said, it's more than just a fight. It's like, not only the biggest moments of these competitors' lives, but in some cases bigger than the $1 million.
Now, just a couple last questions, just related to MMA and kind of the wrestling too. One, close friend for a long time with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He got to be the guy that...
But he's your close friend?
No, you close friend with you. Oh, no, I don't know The Rock at all. I wish I did.
I thought you were name dropping my close friend, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Your close friend, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, gets to put the BMF title around Jorge Masvidal and Madison Square Garden. I was there live for that. Trump was there. Everybody, what did you think of The Rock being part of one of the biggest moments in history? Has he gotten enough in wrestling? Now he's got to take MMA moments too?
Yeah, you're right. You think he can leave a couple crumbs for us guys.
Leave for you.
Hey, man, The Rock's, he's a big fan also. I mean, this was something Nate Diaz just said, hey, let's have this title. And I think that's awesome. There's more than one way to get to the finish line, So if a fighter, the quality of Nate Diaz wants a title, championship fight for a title that had not existed, they mention it, and you could sell out the Garden doing that and put on a tremendous... I think Nate would have turned it on rounds 4 and 5.
I was thinking the same.
Just put it out there.
I was thinking the same,
All right? I'm gonna... Nate, there's no law against putting your hands up.
Nate's got some Foley in him.
Just saying, but this is kind of the polar opposite in that it is guys working through a regular season, a playoff season and competing for the PFL titles. So I think anything. I just think this promotion needs some sunshine and fertilizer to bloom.
I agree. And the Rory McDonald signing is huge in terms of helping that for next season and beyond. One more, Alberto Del Rio, we mentioned it earlier. He had the fight in fighting Tito Ortiz at Combate. I interviewed both of them for the fight. If you watched it, what did you think of Alberto's performance? I thought he was pretty solid.
I did not see it. Okay. I knew about Alberto's, his amateur accolades in Mexico and became a great pro wrestler.
Yeah.
But again, there's something to those guys, who had been competitors, whether it's Brock or Lashley, Alberto, and then they still want to see if they've got something left in the tank. I think Batista was on his own personal odyssey. Just wanted to say that I'd done it. Just wanted to be able to prove to myself that I could do it. And then he was like, and now I'd like to be one of the biggest movie stars in the world. People didn't think that was possible, and he's done that. And so, I'm all for people trying to be the best at whatever they do.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
my friend.
it.
Thank you.
Mick Foley right here on Sherdog.com.
Yeah.